Welcome to Buckets. I am your host, Brandon Anderson, coming to you live, as always, from our Tommy John home studios here for a little Futures Friday fun with Jim Turvey. Jim, we are in April. The playoffs are around the corner. We are here. We basically are past March Madness at this point. Like, we got the games this weekend, men's and women's. Tune in. Lots of good games coming up. Big bets on campus for all your basketball needs. I know I even saw women's episode up there for the Final Four as well. So catch all that before the weekend. But after that, all the riffraff is out of the way. I just watched the NIT championship. I think all that's left then is the Crown championship, whatever that is. Like, they'll still be doing that like months from now. But then finally, the big boys, NBA playoff season. It's coming. Jim, how's it going?
It's good, man. I gotta tell you, from like a projections side thing, I cannot wait for the playoffs. Projecting basketball in March and April should like potentially be illegal. It's fun. It is a puzzle, but it is just pure chaos. So from a viewing perspective, obviously we're excited for playoffs to be here. But from a projection side, I am also excited to kind of dig into a puzzle instead of try to guess an injury report. So I'm very excited for the playoffs to be here.
Yeah, well, and only 4 games a day, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. So That's got to help things as well. So if you follow Jim and follow Jim and me. There we go. Grammar. If you follow us, you know long shots. If you love long shots, you're going to really like this episode, I think. So here's the concept. As you know, each Friday, we're kind of choose a new concept. I'm calling this the 5% draft. So here's what this means. From here forward, for the rest of the season, mostly. There's a couple like futuristic ones we'll throw in at the end. But from here forward, if you imagined the 95th percentile outcome for a team, for a player, for a combination of players, basically what would be not like the best, 99.9%, like that's ridiculous. Nobody ever hits that. But what's the top 5 percentile outcome for a team, for a player? Imagine that, because for me personally, the idea here is I think we're pretty good futures better, and I think I'm good at it because I'm good at imagining the things that feel so improbable in the moment. Like, what? That would never happen. Well, we're sports fans because these things happen. They don't happen so often. We're sports fans because we like the good teams to win too. But I think it's helpful to imagine the outlier outcomes that are outlier but not outlandishly outlier. So we're doing a 5% draft. We think we've got about 20 of these. Theoretically, if we're right, many of these will sound ridiculous, but we should hit one of them. And Jim and I are pretty good at this. I think we're going to end up getting a couple of these along the way, but they're going to sound kind of crazy, I think. So let me just give you an example to start us out here. One example, first pick for the 5% draft. The Chicago Bulls, my Chicago Bulls, escape the play-in and take a series lead on the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's the first pick in our draft. So when I say 5%, I like literally did the math on most of these as best I could to kind of estimate. The Bulls right now look like the 10 seed. Maybe they're the 9 seed. They're going to be playing the play in one way or another. They've been pretty hotly. Like Kobe White just won Eastern Conference Player of the Month, I guess. Josh Giddey has like set himself up to get a big payday this summer. Good job, Chicago, for that one. The 10 seed has never made the playoffs before. So like just that alone is not a nothing prediction. But then getting in, obviously, for this one, I'd be hoping you just win game 1. The play-in teams have won game 1 more than you think. If you look at it, just kind of, I think you had the long 1 week off, whatever. But hopefully it's a 1-0. Maybe it's a shock 2-1. I don't really need to bet on the Bulls trying to take a series lead much later than that. But I think it's a helpful idea of just like, here's what a 5%er outcome would be. The Bulls seem left for dead. Who cares? Nobody cares about them. What if it suddenly is Easter Sunday, the first day or the first weekend of the playoffs, and the Chicago Bulls are up 1-0 on the Cleveland Cavaliers? That's my first pick.
I like it. And I like it because, to be honest, it's not all that. Again, these 5%, they aren't 1%, like you said. There is a path to these things. The Eastern Conference play-in right now is, I think Orlando is playing decent. Atlanta is playing some pretty bad basketball. They slip back again. Miami, you and I have no faith in Miami, even if they have been playing a little bit better of late. It's really not that hard to picture them winning a couple of games, and then the Cleveland part of it's the hardest. You'll hear sure. my Cleveland ceiling in a little bit, but it's not saying they're going to win the series. No, they split the first 2 games and they win a home game, and then they probably lose the next 3 in a row. Like I think it's a viable option, and I think it's an interesting way. I do think that Chicago to make the playoffs is like the one rung down the ladder that isn't a crazy long shot if you want to get in on it at this moment.
Yeah, and we'll point out here, like, if there is a way to bet some of these, if you like the long shot pitch, we'll try to find a way. There's obviously not a way to take a series lead on Cleveland, but maybe you bet to make the playoffs and then later on, like, come in on, like the exact outcome, Chicago game 1, then 4 for Cleveland in a row or something like that if you want to do or something. So follow-up question here, and then we'll get to your first pick. If you had to guess, if I told you a 10 seed made the playoffs from either the East or the West Conference, which conference would you think is more likely right now?
Well, can we save that? Because that may or may not be coming back for one of mine.
Sure. So we'll go ahead and give us your first pick.
Why don't we do that one? That was going to be lower down the ladder, but it's too perfect of a tease. I'm going to say this is. I'm framing it almost as a bottom 5. I'll just say it this way. The Thunder trail in round 1 against the Mavs. So I'm saying that the Mavs come out of the West and they take a lead in the series. This is basically the exact same thing you have, but in the West. And, some of the logic is the same here. I'm not going to call for, the Thunder to lose in the first round, but Dallas with Anthony Davis on the court looks pretty solid. They're 5-1 overall. Wins over Houston, Orlando, your Chicago Bulls, who we know are like actually kind of decent right now. Memphis is in free fall. They won a game tonight, but overall, that very easily could be the 8-9 matchup. And I would be pretty intrigued by Dallas. And now the other half of this is if they get into an OKC series, I think if it's Memphis OKC, I would be betting OKC to sweep that series. I think it's a really bad matchup for Memphis and a team that is struggling right now. Dallas kind of has OKC's number. Now, this is a different Dallas team. Obviously, there's no Luka Doncic that took out the Thunder last year. However, this is a team that won 3 of 4 against OKC this season without Luka in any of those 3 wins. Now, there was no Kyrie. That is a big factor, but there was also no AD. Anthony Davis type of player who really could give Chet Holmgren some problems, or even Isaiah Hartenstein. It's just much bigger than those guys. So I'm vaguely intrigued by this Dallas team. I actually, honestly, if we are looking far down the road to next season, I think they're going to be kind of undervalued in terms of their ceiling. I think Kyrie is just a really good partner to have to any of these superstars. If Anthony Davis, the times he is healthy, if he can stay out there, if he can take a game or 2 off of the Thunder. So we have basically mirror projections for the potential 10 teams in each conference scaring the 1 seed, but ultimately not getting it done. But I'm intrigued by this Mavs team. I'm vaguely intrigued by this Bulls team. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know if there's huge bets other than maybe Mavs and Bulls to make playoffs type of deal. But I think it's funny that we basically mirrored each other with our first picks here.
Yeah, I actually, and when we say first picks, these are certainly not in order necessarily.
Yes.
Would be neither of our first choice of picks here. But I actually had almost this exact one on my list further down the list. I had Mavs take 2 games off OKC in round 1 as my 5% outcome. And I actually considered, like, is this pushes it to game 7? Like, I was like, okay, how far am I willing to take this? So the setup right now, I was just giving up on dead for this team. We talked about the Suns before. I bet the Suns for quarter unit, and they've like immediately have not won a single game since then. And Kevin Durant rolled his ankle, and that's over. The Kings seem like they've given up too. So the Mavs suddenly might be like hosting the given for dead Kings. They can win that game, like they should win that game, honestly, if Anthony Davis is playing. And now you got Anthony Davis against Gobert, Anthony Davis against whatever is happening with the Grizzlies, whatever the Clippers might give you any given night. Like they could win that game, and we know the matchup stuff. So last I saw, there was a plus 600 to make the playoffs for the Mavericks. I'm not really a fan of this team, honestly, but I had them about 25%. So that's like twice the price of what that should be by the math that I did. So yeah, that will chime in on that one. I'm going to stick with OKC because that actually brings me to what my actual first pick was here. Here's my 5%er for OKC. The Oklahoma City Thunder lose 3 playoff games or less this postseason. Ooh. That is their 5% outcome. I think here's how that goes. You got to sweep the first round. If you don't sweep the first round, we're cooked. But as long as it's not Dallas, Clippers, Grizzlies, Kings, Suns, that's a sweep. Like they should be sweeping that series.
Oh, I'm going
3
to be
losses.
pushing back on one of those later, but we'll tease that for
All right,
later.
fair
One of
enough,
those
fair
teams is
enough.
not like the other, I think.
So after that, you got to sweep to hit this one. And after that, you either need one more sweep or you can lose one game each of the other 3 series, including the Western Finals and the Finals. So this is a Thunder win the championship and Thunder roll to the championship, really. So for reference, here's what that would do. 11 teams ever have lost 3 playoff games or less en route to the title. Teams like the Kevin Durant Warriors 2017, Kobe Shaq 2001, the 83 Sixers, that's the faux team. Those teams lost 1 game. Teams that lost 3 games or less, the Bulls 91 and 96, the 86 Celtics, 87 Lakers. Jim, did you know? I didn't actually know this. I never thought about it. Last year's Celtics are on this list. What? Who knew? I would not have put them on this list. So that's the sort of category we'd be putting them in here. I think probably that still includes like a quote unquote close sweep, like a competitive sweep or competitive 5-game series where they stole one on the road and then they just kind of finish things off from there. I will say this. I considered for OKC that they'll finish winning the title with a record postseason defensive rating. So I looked that up. Any guess, Jim, on what team this is a champion? And it's someone in our lifetime that has the best playoff defensive rating.
I mean, it's not, and this is it adjusted for era or no?
Not adjusted for era. So yeah, you should be thinking in the era you're thinking of now.
The Ben Wallace Pistons?
It is in fact Ben Wallace Pistons. Yeah. You got to guess for me on the defensive rating for the entire postseason.
I mean, does it start with a 9? It's probably
92.
I was
92.
I was thinking 92.
92 defensive rating, 87.1 points a game. So yeah, I'm not making that prediction. That's the 0.1% draft. Like we're not there. They're not doing that one. But I think there's a world, like I wanted a Thunder one, and it can't just be the Thunder win the title. That's way better than 5%. It can't be like, oh, Shea wins MVP and conference MVP. That's still way above 5%. This to me is the Thunder are exactly as good as all the metrics say they are right now, and they prove it in the postseason. What do you think?
Well, it's really the Celtics from last season, and I think it would be similar in that, sorry, Celtics fans, the bracket would break a little bit for them. They would get either, a recently fired Memphis team in the first round, then they get what I think is a slightly fraudulent Lakers team in the second round, and then they get a Nuggets team where Jamal Murray is worn down by then, and then they get, whoever is in the East. Turns out the Western Conference has always been the really good conference. I don't think it's all that unfeasible, but I think the bracket, whenever you're a 3 or fewer lost team in the playoffs, things have to break your way a little bit, and you have to be an all-time team. But that's kind of the point of this exercise.
It is. All right, give me one from you.
Okay, I'm gonna push back instantly on the teams that you listed there, because this is a player 5%, but it's tied into a team that I'm becoming more and more intrigued by. This Western Conference has all these teams. Every team there's a new week. Kawhi Leonard will play over 250 minutes in a round 1 series. Now, do you think that alone is a 5% outcome? Because I can twist off of it if you don't. I didn't do exact math. 250 minutes basically implies a 7-game series of playing like 38 minutes a game.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Because here's the thing. On my list, so I'm gonna chime in here. One of mine is Kawhi Leonard plays at least 15 healthy postseason games. So I think that's interesting because we're going for the same sort of thing, but these are very different outcomes. Yours is Kawhi's healthy enough to play full load, but apparently not good enough so that it still goes 7 games in the first round. Mine is different. Mine is saying Kawhi's healthy enough that they're winning at least 2 series if you're getting to 15 healthy postseason games. So why make your pitch for why this is going 7, and I'll make my pitch for why it goes longer.
For sure. To me, the Clippers have one of the biggest home road splits out there this season. The Intuit Dome in its first season actually has really been really strong. They have the 3rd best net rating at home this season. The Wall is doing this stuff to shooting numbers where opposing teams are actually really struggling. It's really impressive. Now, I want to see how that goes into the postseason, because you could make the case that the atmosphere is like a collegiate atmosphere, and that's helping. And then You get to the playoffs, everyone has that. So you could actually make the Zag case that a bit of that home court advantage fades away. I don't think that will be the case. I think they played really well at home all season. I think that continues. And here's the other half of this. Kawhi, even though he's been playing a lot better of late, and the point we both latched onto that maybe I should spell out is, here are his minutes by month. It's 24 in January per game, 31 per game in February, 36 per game in March, and then he played 38 in his first game in April. So they are ramping him up. But his BPM, here are his BPMs by month. It's 2.1, negative 2.1, 4.9, and then 4.4 in one game. He still doesn't have the ceiling that he has in the past. Now, maybe he can reach back a little bit more, but I think the reach back gets him to like a 6 BPM. It's not enough to me that in a Western Conference where the top of it is really, really strong, unless they draw the Rockets, I think, and even the Rockets, I have another one coming on this later. I think that's going to be a dogfight of a series. So I think all these series in the West are going to be really tough, but I think they're not going to be afraid to push him. I think they're really doing a good job kind of building up his stamina during this stretch of the season. They look great. The Clippers look really good right now. I was going to change it and say he'll play at least 200 minutes in 2 series, which is much, much bolder, because then you're saying they have to win the series and he has to stay healthy and it has to go long. So that would be maybe a 1%. There's no exact perfect math for this.
Sure.
The point being, I'm very intrigued by the Clippers. Kawhi seems healthy, seems doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but he is getting his minutes load up. And I think this Clippers team is one to keep an eye on overall.
So I think, honestly, and of course this makes sense since I picked a different angle, I think your Kawhi is actually a lower percent outcome than my Kawhi one. Like 250 minutes in a series for Kawhi is a pretty big ask. Like, almost definitely has to go 7 games. So we're already starting with that. Like 6 games plus like a double overtime in there. Maybe we get there. But even then, like Kawhi never went out for 1 minute of like, oh, I rolled my ankle for just like 3 minutes of the third quarter or something. Like none of that. You can never miss any of the time. Like to me, my position was basically, and I think this is the leap where maybe I'm holding on to Kawhi that probably isn't there anymore. He's like a 12 BPM playoff performer for his entire life. Whenever he's healthy, always, every season, basically. So that he's like a 4 right now. Like he's had 7, 8, 9 stretches. Those are like MVP level stretches. He's had knockout shooting level. He can crank up the defense typically in past postseasons. Maybe that's all make-believe. Maybe that just like can't happen anymore. Certainly maybe not for 15 healthy games. My thing was basically, if I know Kawhi is healthy and he kind of looks healthy lately the last few weeks, like maybe this is the way. Maybe they just wait all year and are like, cool, you're a playoff only guy. Yep. If he's healthy, then I think they win a couple of series, because especially if they end up on the non-OKC side of the bracket breaks, right? Then I think you get a healthy Kawhi plus already pretty good team, like a really good defense. I think Harden actually is a pretty good playoff performer usually. To me, that was, if we got enough, then he would actually win a couple of series. I already put this one on the app. This was from our last pod. Finals MVP. We bet it 140-1. It's down to 70-1 at one book, but there's a 125-1 still at Caesars right now. I will say this. Finals MVP means 2 full months of Kawhi and winning all the way. So I was like, well, what about Western Conference MVP? I only see that up at FanDuel right now, and that's only 23-1. That's a lot less exciting to me. Like, I need the juice, and at 23-1, a lot has to go right there still. They still got to win the West, and Kawhi's got to be healthy for probably, 18, 20 games now. But keep an eye out. Maybe Western MVP. I think certainly my Finals MVP ticket, if Kawhi makes it to the Western Finals and we get like 3-4 games in, that's a proxy Clippers ticket, and I'm going to hedge. Like, I'm not cashing that ticket in all likelihood. That's not a 5%er, but I think I have some options there. So we're intrigued by Kawhi. We'll say it there. As we're recording right now, the Warriors are playing the Lakers. Just cancel the rest of the season. Best of 100, Steph and LeBron. That's what everybody wants, really. Here's one of mine. I think it's specific here to try to hit the 5%. The Warriors win the West from the play-in. That's my 5% prediction for the Warriors. Now, I haven't seen the score. They're up comfortably on the Lakers. Is that correct?
They were last I glanced. They're up 11.
Okay, so even that win already hurts my prediction a little bit, because what I really need here, like as recording before the games on Thursday night, we had 4 teams at 44 wins. That's the 5 through 8 seed. So my hope here for this prediction would be that they drop a game or two, basically, and get to the play-in as the 7 seed, then get out of the play-in. And this really started with, okay, I'd like to make a 5% outcome for the Houston Rockets. What is it? What could the Rockets do that's good? Nobody likes the Rockets. What if I like the Rockets? What's their outcome? Jim, I can't do it. I got nothing. I have no good Rockets outcomes. I can't come up with anything that was even plausible to me, 5%. But I came up with is the Warriors beating them as the 7 seed from the play-in. And then the matchup matters. They're 0-6 until this game tonight against the Lakers and the Clippers. So they don't necessarily want an LA team. They're 0-2 against the Nuggets. Now, granted, how much of those are with Jimmy Butler in the lineup? Probably not a lot. We know the numbers are way different there. They're 3-1 against the Grizzlies, 3-1 against the Timberwolves. So maybe we get like the Timberwolves knocked out the Nuggets again, and they're on that half of the bracket away from the Thunder. The Warriors with Steph are 2-0 against the Thunder this year. One of those without Draymond, none of them with Jimmy. I don't know. I feel like the Warriors could give the Thunder some issues, potentially. So my numbers basically got there to about 5%. Now, you can't bet this one right now, partly because there's a Warriors tax always. But like, if I'm right that they made it to the play-in, you're going to get a way better price out of the West because they've got to escape the play-in. So this is like the Warriors stumble a little bit here and then still make a chance at the West. It's not a title. I think they would probably get crushed in the finals by whoever. Maybe not crushed, but I think that they probably lose to Boston or Cleveland there. It's a West bet from the play-in. What do you think?
I love it, in part because I almost could transition right into it. The schedules down the stretch are actually pretty tough for Golden State and a little bit easier for some of the teams around them. So I actually don't think that they will really mind slipping that 7 spot. It's a little scary, and I know Matt on this podcast is always talking about how much the teams do want to avoid it. If I can face Houston instead of Denver, I realize that it's dicey, and I realize you're relying on one game, but a veteran team like the Warriors, I think, is going to be a little bit less nervous, even though, they don't have the best history in the play-in, so, but overall, I'm on the Warriors. I'm very intrigued by them. Unfortunately, I'm very intrigued by like half of the West right now. But I think it's a great way to attack them. And I think you're 100% right that they just have to move the number if they slip down into the play-in, and that's when you buy in. So I'm 100% in on this one. Do you want me to transition into the team that you talked about, the Rockets? So I think your goal with this, and I think I slightly misinterpreted, was to get like a top 5% outcome. This is just a random 5% outcome that might happen to the Rockets, but I think it's a fun one. So I also have the Rockets losing in round 1, but what I have is a fun 5%er here. Each game will be in single digits. So no playoff team had fewer double-digit games this season than the Rockets. So the defense kind of keeps them in every game, and the offense also kind of keeps them in every game by running away from no one, because they can't really do that. So how I would approach this, I don't even need to linger too long on this one, but if we get them in a series that isn't, I mean, honestly, in almost any series, I'm going to like this. I think I'm going to bet them to lose the series in exactly 7. I might sprinkle 6, because I do think that those are like 2 most likely outcomes. And I'm going to each game by game, bet them to lose by 5 points or less in every single game, because I think it's really going to be that. Listen, I love this Houston team, and they've shown an ability to beat good teams in the regular season. I think in the postseason, that's going to dry up. I think that offense is really going to struggle. Some of these wins they've had, there's the Fred VanVleet banked in 3 that like comes to mind immediately. They've had a little bit of luck, and the net rating in these clutch games shows that it's a lot of luck. So I think that this Houston team is going to be a dogfight. I think they're going to win a couple games even, but I think that it's going to be a lot of close losses that ultimately is a dogfight of a series, but and it's going to be very bettable, I think, because I think that we're going to see a script, and it's going to happen time after time in the first round.
So you and I both listen to a lot of podcasts. I hate when people are always like, well, we didn't compare notes beforehand. Like, come on, you did. The whole thing is planned. Jim and I did not prepare notes beforehand, but I started laughing when he was like, so I had a creative one for the Rockets, because I also have a creative one for the Rockets. Here's mine. The Rockets failed to win a single playoff game. That's my 5% outcome. And here's the thing. I love to bet the reverse sweep for the home team that I don't trust in if I like the underdog. Because here's the thing. If you lose game 1, especially against the veteran team, I'm hoping here for the Warriors or the Timberwolves. That's what I'm hoping the 7 seed is. If it's the Clippers or the Grizzlies, they were 3-0 against the Clippers, they're 3-1 against the Grizzlies. We know the Rockets are a very matchup dependent team. I won't like this if it goes that way. So I need the Warriors or Timberwolves to fall into the play-in, then get out of the play-in and play the Rockets. If you win game 1 as the more battle-tested team, either the Warriors with all of their background, the Timberwolves playing in the Western Finals last year, now it's all on game 2, because if you don't protect home court, you're down 0-2 going to Minnesota, going to Golden State. And if you go down 0-3 as the young team, you're cooked. Like, we're like 75, 80% in game 4 after that. Not necessarily. Maybe you just like are the young team and you show up and you want to win 1. But many of the times, like, we know how it goes down 3-0. The percentages skew greatly. And the fact that the home court like flips basically, I will almost definitely be betting this in actual life once we get to the series. We can't right now, but the reverse sweep for whoever's playing Houston. My only problem is books are so disrespecting Houston, like both of us are right now. Let's be fair. I'm not sure we're going to get a great price on this, but I think the fact that they will start at home gives us opportunity for it. So that's my 5%. Sorry to Rockets fans. I genuinely tried to find a positive version, and I just couldn't talk myself into anything.
Yeah, there were times where I think the best case for Houston, if you want to talk yourself into it, is the number of wins they have against really quality teams this season. I just think when you dig a little bit deeper on those wins, some cracks show up. And the other case would be that the market's low on them. So if you are a believer in those regular season teams, you really think it's going to translate, there are going to be opportunities. It's not going to be me and you leading the charge there. Do you want me to transition in? Should we stay in the West?
Let me go one more. I've got a few more than Jim, so I got to keep jumping in with an extra one every now and then. Plus, a couple of my next ones are like Jim teams, so I keep like skipping one in case I need to come back to one of yours. So here's a very Brandon pick for you. Right for the haterade. LeBron James reaches back one more time and adds one last finals loss to his resume. One more finals loss for the King. So, we got to have a Lakers 5% prediction. So they're 3-0 against the Warriors, maybe 3-1 by the time you listen to this. So maybe get the Warriors round 1. Adam Silver is going to love that. We set that up in one of the brackets that we did. And then if you're in that right side of the bracket, what if suddenly round 2 is Houston against either the Grizzlies or the Clippers? Like, they can't set the line high enough for how much money they're getting on the Lakers in that series right there. The Lakers right now are like 50-50 for the 3 seed. So they're in pretty good shape in the bracket to stay away from the Thunder a little bit. They've only played the Thunder once so far this year in the in-season tournament. So not the real Lakers, not the Luka Lakers. I think that the Thunder are not a great matchup for Luka, but, Dallas was pretty good against Oklahoma City last year with Luka, so I'm not really too sure what to do with that. But it's Luka and LeBron. Could they do the thing? I think you get to the finals. Like, I don't really know what my answer is, how you get past Oklahoma City. Maybe someone else took them out. Maybe there's an injury. Some of that's part of why this is only a 5% thing. I was like, okay, I had them about 7% to win the West. I was like, okay, now what? I need to get down to 5. I took this seriously, Jim. I wanted only 5% outcomes. So I was like, okay, I don't think they win enough. Now I'm below 5%. I can't have like LeBron or Luka winning MVP. So I think the East team would win enough for that to be around 5%. Yeah. So I think that's the bet. You can't really bet it right now, I think, because books are so high on the Lakers. Like, I did all my math. I always do my math first and then check. And I was like, whoa, you're way high on the Lakers. Like, I thought I was being generous here with my high-end outcome. It's LeBron and Luka. That's the case here. But then the possible framing of adding the one last finals loss, just chef's kiss.
I will say, as a long-term LeBron stan, I'm pretty out on this Lakers team. If I do not have a fifth percentile outcome for the Lakers, if I did, it might be that they get swept in the first round. I like so many teams in the West, and I am incredibly skeptical of this Lakers team. It's insane. It's Luka in the playoffs, and it's LeBron James, and Austin Reeves has been a really good third piece. And Dorian Finney-Smith, I was just tweeting about how under the radar and valuable he is today. The Jackson Hayes of it, I think, is really dicey. And just to be honest, LeBron, Luka, and Reeves as a threesome on the court have been about plus 0 net rating. Now, again, these guys all have extra gears that they have shown us in the postseason. I with the other teams I love in the West, and the market love for the Lakers, there's just no way I'm going to be on them this season. If they burn me and they're sitting there in the finals, either winning or losing, I'll tip the cap. But the Lakers are not going to be a team that I'm on this season.
Well, and I'll say too, like part of the point of a 5% exercise and part of what it makes us good futures bettors is sometimes betting purposefully on the thing that doesn't seem like a thing that we believe in, right? Like sometimes we have to imagine, what if I'm wrong about this thing? How could I be wrong in a responsible way? What would that outcome look like? How do I bet against myself sometimes? And like even on our like season preview stuff I do with Matt every year, I'm hitting some of those bets sometimes where I'm like, okay, what if I'm actually just totally wrong about this dude? Like even look, Jalen Williams is not going to win most improved player. We know what I thought about Jalen Williams a year ago, but I came out with him on most improved under like, well, here's how this fits. Here's what the profile looks like. And then he was one of the favorites early on for it. So we don't get to cash anything for one of the favorites. But the point is, I don't think you necessarily have to believe one of these things is definitely going to happen. You should not. It's a 5% outcome, but could it happen? Could it reasonably happen enough to bet it? With the Lakers, the odds aren't going to be in our favor enough anyways. I think you probably just have to go like game to game, series by series, something like that, if you like this one. But, had to fit the narrative in.
I'll go with one that I don't necessarily believe in. It's a team that I've been skeptical of all season. Now, I have woven in another team I'm skeptical of, so there's still a little bit of me holding on to my prior. But I'm going to say the Knicks have 4 players average 20-plus points per game in an upset of the Celtics. So this is basically the Brunson was out, and we all woke up. If you've been paying attention to Knicks, you've seen OG Anunoby's playing maybe the best basketball of his career. It's not on like fake shooting splits. He's just genuinely playing outstanding. Mikal Bridges is playing a little bit better. He started off hot and then kind of passed the baton to Brunson or to Anunoby. I think it's going to be very tough for Jalen Brunson against a defensive backcourt of Derek White and Drew Holiday to carry the Knicks in a series against the Celtics. But again, I've been coming around this lately of, listen, this is the team, this Celtics team, this is who the Knicks were kind of, the wingstop Knicks were theoretically built to beat this team. And Bridges looks a little better. Anunoby looks incredible. Brunson is going to be fresh. Listen, they've gotten absolutely smoked by the Celtics every time they have played them this season and lost plenty of games to them last season. It's a 5th percentile outcome. Do I want to be betting it this second? No. But I think the path to beating Boston for New York is more the path through 4 players averaging 20-plus points a game. Cat obviously being the 4th. Listen, we talked about Cat and the frauds. He hasn't averaged 20-plus in a postseason series. So that alone is another. This might be a 3rd or 2nd percentile outcome to have to get all this done. But I think that's the path to beating Boston is that they get the guys spreading the wealth a little bit for the first 3 quarters and then let Brunson cook in the 4th quarter. And listen, in the 4th quarter, in the clutch, I know the Boston numbers with the technical, if you do the last 5 minutes within 5 points, the Celtics have the 2nd best offensive rating. Guess what? Each step you go down the ladder, if you go to 2 minutes within 3 points, the Celtics are suddenly 8th. If you go 1 minute within 2 points, the Celtics are down to 12th. If you go 30 seconds tie game, the Celtics are in the bottom half of the league. The offense does get worse and worse in the super crunch. And listen, am I nitpicking a Celtics team that won the title last year and is, the prohibitive favorite to come out of the East right now? Yes. But I do trust a Brunson-led Knicks offense where the wealth has been spreading out. If they can do that, I'm going to love that Knicks team in tight games against Boston. Could be one of those series where Boston wins 3 games by 25 points because they hit their threes, and then those other 4 games in the crunch time, if Brunson can get it done, that's a path to beating the Celtics.
I think you're very optimistic on this one. Not even necessarily that the Knicks beat the Celtics, but I think Knicks beating the Celtics is like we're already fast approaching the 5% territory for me without adding in like the 4 other contingencies there. So I think I'm a little lower than 5% on this one, but I've got 3 East team ones. We mostly done the West so far. So I'm going to give you an option. I've got a Celtics thing, I've got a Pacers thing, and a Cavs thing. Who do you want me to go with here?
Do the Pacers thing. I want to hear about the Pacers.
All right. So I think I'm just going to keep this one very simple. 5% outcome. Pacers win the East and head to the NBA Finals. That's the outcome. So this is a Tyrese Halliburton bet. Halliburton, since the All-Star break, 12.5 BPM. That's basically the number that I'm projecting Kawhi Leonard playoff version. Like, that's how good of a player that is. That's the number he is. 148 offensive rating, 69% true shooting. That's since the All-Star break. Since January 1st, so like a huge part of the season, 138 offensive rating on the court, almost 9 box plus minus. Like, he is shredding right now, and the offense is incredible right now. So we talked on one of our recent podcasts. It looks like Indiana and likely Detroit in the first round. I want to be excited about Detroit. I want Detroit to be fun and good. I think Indiana is a significantly better team than Detroit, so I have them as a pretty clear favorite in that one. And then at that point, you got to beat the Cavs, and you got to beat probably the Celtics. So I kind of just did the math on them to have both of those something around 30%. There is the chance that the Celtics are not quite the Celtics by the time you get to that series, or maybe have lost to the Knicks. That's a better series. We've seen, obviously, that one previously. Maybe the Celtics just aren't healthy by then with Horford, Porzingis, whatever. Yeah, my only question on this one is this. Right now, you can bet this one. This is one of my favorite bets of our options for today. I don't know which bet I want here. Do I want Pacers to win the East at 33-1 at ESPN Bet? Or do I want Tyrese Halliburton, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, 55-1? Because this is a Halliburton position. Like, if Siakam is really good and Halliburton is fine, they're not winning the East. I think if they win the East, it has to be because I'm right about Halliburton being like incredible and maybe the best meaningful playoff player in the East, like Giannis losing the first round. And after that, Halliburton by the numbers. If you look at BPM since January 1, here's how it goes. Jokic, Shea, Giannis, Halliburton. That's the list. That's the sort of style we're talking about here. Should I just be betting Halliburton Eastern Conference MVP? Is that enough of a proxy for the Pacers, or does Siakam have like a 30-40% chance of stealing it in that scenario, and I should just take my money on the Pacers there?
I think you make a really good case for Halliburton as the proxy. I will say Siakam has been playing outstanding himself and has been good in the postseason before.
Yeah.
And I think part of what is I'm very intrigued by the Pacers. The Pacers honestly are getting me a little bit nervous about the Cavs. It looks like they're going to be sitting in that 4-5, and I also really like this Pacers team, in part because they have like a very unflashy depth, but the Nembhard, the Nesmith, even the bench and Turner, they have it. I think if they're going well, it's Halliburton as the puppeteer, and the BPM's going to be insane, but the numbers on like the stat page at the end of the day might look relatively flat. And if the voters are going to the BPMs, the VORPs and the Schmorps, it will be a runaway. But if Siakam averages 6 more points, 3 more rebounds, and Halliburton's obviously going to get him on assists, I think maybe just play it safe with the 33-1, especially since that seems a tiny bit off market in general if there's a lot of 20-1s out there. So I get your case of Halliburton's going to have to be the 12 BPM guy to get them to the finals. I just don't know how much the BPM is going to matter in the actual conference finals vote, which you've already seen. It gets a little wonky in those.
Right. Well, and I don't love necessarily the matchup against all those Celtics guards defending Halliburton either. But again, I have to beat them somehow. Yeah. So apparently Halliburton has to be good enough to beat them. So that's where I kind of got back and forth. I am going to bet this. I'm going to put this into the app. I think you're right. I think it's just Pacers to win the East. I have actually 2 Celtics ones, and I have 1 Cavs one. Do you have either of those teams, or should I do one more East before you do one?
Why don't you do a big chunk? Do both your Celtics and then the Cavs, and I'll transition. Of course, I have a Cavs one.
Okay. So 2 Celtics ones. They're similar, and I like one clearly better than the other. So here's my first one. Jaylen Brown somehow sweeps both MVP awards in the postseason again. That's the 5% outcome. So I'm actually a little bit lower on the Celtics than the market. Even though I thought I was pretty high on the Celtics, I have them around 25-30% to win it all. I realize it's a big margin for them, but it's a little lower than what what the markets have. So I think just going with narrative here. So spoiler, both of my Celtics bets here are MVP type angles. We literally saw last year, the whole point of the Celtics team is that they have 4 or 5 really good players, any one of whom could win MVP any given series. I thought Derek White could have been MVP of either one of the series that Jaylen Brown won it for. I thought Jason Tatum probably should have still been Finals MVP, even though that was a really tough decision on that one. We've seen that they didn't give it to the best player on the team. We literally have 2 times of evidence that they could give an award to the Celtics and did not give it to the player everyone agrees is the best player on the team, regardless of what the series is, which we know you've done the work on it. You normally just give it to the best player who scored the most at the end. That's the award. So we know they might not do that. So if the Celtics win the title, and if Jaylen Brown, let's say, we know, I'm not the Jaylen Brown guy, he still is like 35%, in my opinion, to win an MVP award of a series the Celtics win. He's in the mix for sure. I'd put Tatum a little bit higher, 40-something, and then there's other guys. If Jaylen wins that one, doesn't the narrative flip? And now, like, in the finals, don't we want it to be Jaylen? It's like, oh, man, it's like James Worthy of the modern era. Like, he's coming through. He's not the best player on the team, but he is coming through. For like, I feel like that's right there. I think he jumps to like 50% in the finals. And I'm not doing matchup or anything. I'm just fully narrative. And I get something like 4 or 5% there. Jaylen Brown sweeping both. Now, here's the problem. You can't parlay them, at least not in the books that I checked. You can bet both of them, but they're Celtics correlated, so you can't parlay. Your book might be able to. Maybe your local will let you. But it's the Brandon Hader. Jaylen Brown sweeps both MVP. That's that one. Here's the one I like. And this, I think, actually might be my favorite actual bet on this podcast. This one will go into the app as well. Not Jaylen Brown. Kristaps Porzingis Finals MVP. 5%. It is 55-1 at DraftKings, and I think that is a terrible number. Again, I'm not as high in the Celtics as the books are, but if I have them making the finals about 50-50, winning it about 50-50 of that, something like that, I put them around 25% then. If that's the case, to get to a 5% outcome, Porzingis only has to be Finals MVP 20% of the time. Okay, who are they most likely to play? The Thunder. Hey, you know it'd be really nice? Having a 7-3 dude against the team that has been kind of small, like Chet's like a little bit small. Can Hartenstein play out there enough? Can Porzingis just like put dudes in the bucket? Like, can he just back dudes down? Can he stretch them out? Can he man the paint? Can he like block Shea so Shea's not able? Like, that's a huge weapon. And this is really as a throwback. This is like a half self pat on the back. This was my sleeper going into the finals last year. And I think I was right. I thought he was incredibly valuable the first couple games. He just got hurt after that, and then obviously couldn't win it after that. But I thought he looked incredibly valuable. We saw, even once he came back, how valuable his on minutes were versus when they're off. Like, they really stood out with him that way. I think Porzingis, obviously part of it is health here. That's part of the factor. But now that he's back and ready to go, I think this number is way off. And I think there's a very strong chance, I think most people listening will agree with this, we're expecting the Celtics to be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. So you're in the Final Four now. You have an MVP ticket on a guy that any given night can be their best player. Any given series could be their most important player. And you have a ticket on what might be the favorite in that series at 55-1. I think you are going to want to have this ticket later. So that might be one of my favorites on here. It's definitely one of my favorite bets. Porzingis, MVP in the finals, 5% outcome. What do you think of my 2 Celtics ones?
I have to say, even as the resident Celtics skeptic, I'm intrigued by the Porzingis one. The only flaw to it I can find, and tell me if you think this is at all a real thing, because I'm semi-convinced it's not. There is this underlying current among Celtic fan and media that just kind of hates Porzingis. And it's like really funny because Boston is such a, you will not mess with our guys. Like how dare you? There's a weird thing with Porzingis where at some point they just flipped on him. They just don't like Porzingis. And the Boston media, the Boston media mafia is so strong that I feel like if it was starting to become a narrative of Porzingis, like I almost feel like they would get out the trenches. They'd go to war and be like, it has to be Tatum. Tatum's our guy. Like I almost feel like there's a chance that could happen. Is that feasible or is that too ridiculous?
I think that's fair. Here's my narrative counter argument. You're right. Someone like Bill Simmons would go on and be like, it's Jason Tatum. Like it's ridiculous. This is our 4th series and we're winning the title and it's got to be Tatum for one of these. Like, great. That's fine. Happy to come on your podcast, Bill, and argue otherwise. Here's my counter argument. Who would the Celtics have just beaten before going to the Eastern Conference Finals and Finals? Well, it's Kristaps' old team, the New York Knickerbockers. And he put Cat into the basket and he carried them past the Knicks, his old team. Maybe that's where he flips the narrative back around. Maybe that's why it's only a 5% outcome here. I think you're right. I think that, he's probably not going to lead the team in scoring. It's going to have to be one of those plurality sort of things. But that's the point of this bet. Like, you want a Celtics plurality MVP ticket. We literally know that from last year. So this is my Jaylen Brown bet. This is like a bitter bet, shaking my hand at the cloud, I guess. I think 55-1 is a bad number.
Yeah, no, I'm going to join you on that one.
All right, I need to rest my voice on all my Eastern guys. I have a Cavs one, but I want to hear your Cavs one first.
Well, not surprisingly, I'm taking a ceiling bet for him. And honestly, it's not even going to be surprising what the ceiling bet is. In fact, I'm going to let you rest your voice in a second in my chat. But do you want to see if you can guess a bet that is an exact bet out there at plus 3,800? Can you guess what it is?
I think you are taking the Matt Moore exact outcome, Cleveland Cavaliers over Oklahoma City Thunder in the finals.
It's a good guess, but no, it's a player we have talked about. It's a player you were low on and I was high on. And it's a guy who I think if Cleveland is going to go as far as I think they can, I think it is going to be that he is stepping up and he is a playoff performer. It's Darius Garland, finals MVP, plus 3,800. So another way to get on Cleveland. Against Boston, Donovan Mitchell's been amazing. He has been the guy against Boston. So I don't want the Eastern Conference Finals, Darius Garland. I want the finals. I think if they are going to go that far, he's going to have to be a legitimate number 2. And here's the thing. If they face OKC, Mitchell was a combined 6 for 31 in the 2 matchups this season. The Dortcher chamber. I saw you in the comments yelling at someone for cherry picking the Dort matchups, but Dort definitely ate up Donovan Mitchell in those matchups. And the inverse of this is that Garland really is the guy they go to in the clutch. I think in the finals, in these close games, there's a very good chance that, Mitchell averages 24, maybe 25. Garland averages 22, but he's the lead option in the clutch. And suddenly on a team, again, with these flattened options, Donovan Mitchell is clearly the best player, but this is a team with flattened options. Garland was the leading scorer in those games against the Thunder. I think there's a chance for him to be the star player in that series and break out. Mitchell gets his Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and then we get to the finals, and Garland, he's right neck and neck leading scoring, but he had the clutch moments, and Mitchell's field goal percentage was really ugly because he drew the Dort matchup. Again, this is a player I am really in on. It's part of why I'm really in on the Cavs. This is the maybe first percentile outcome for Garland, but the 5th for the Cavs, in a team that I keep going back to the well on.
So I like this one. I think this is one of your better ones. I'm going to give you my Cavs one, and I'm going to tell you why I think yours is better than mine, actually. So my Cavs one, I actually texted you this one earlier just as an example of one. Here's my Cavs one. Donovan Mitchell sweeps Eastern and Finals MVP en route to a title, and we're still not at 5% yet, and leads the playoffs in points per game. So I thought this was interesting for this reason. That's a lot of stuff that has to really go Donovan's way and Cleveland's way. Yeah. Cleveland is legit. Like, think of this in comparison to the other outlandish things we've been saying on this podcast as 5% outcomes. That's a lot of stuff that has to really go the way for Donovan Mitchell. I have them around 20% to win the title. They're plus 500. So that's not so far off the books. I'm slightly high on them compared to the books, which makes sense. I think that's kind of been the case. You're higher, I think, than that. But to me, I wanted the Garland thing. I started with Garland, and I was like, I can't do it against Boston. Like, I started with Eastern, just throwing Derek White and Drew Holiday at small Darius Garland. I just did not feel good about it. Donovan has been such a good playoff scorer. He averages for his career 28.1. He was just under 30 a game last year. He was 6th in scoring. We probably need 31, 32. Like we saw Bubble Mitchell. We've seen other stretches where he just catches absolute fire, especially on threes. The Cavs are number 1 in points per game. They're top 10 in pace. So like, I think as far as the leading playoffs and scoring, I think that helps out. Like he's going to play a lot. He's going to score a lot of buckets. I think he's been maybe holding back a little bit and saving it for the playoffs. So we're kind of getting everyone involved. I had a hard time imagining, we talked about doing who would you bet as a proxy for a team as MVP rather than just the team. I really thought it was Donovan Mitchell. But all that said, I think you're right that if you get, I had in my notes, it can't be Garland against Boston, can't be Garland against Oklahoma City. Look at all the length they're going to throw at him. But the torture chamber against Mitchell, and if the Cavs actually beat the Thunder in the finals, Garland being able to be not the guy that Dort is on, light up Shea a little bit while Shea has to kind of do everything in offense on his side of the things against a pretty good defense. I don't hate that. And at 38-1, mine's not really bettable. I can't bet all these things parlayed together because they're all correlated outcomes. I think 38-1, if you think Cleveland is in the Eastern Conference Finals like a month from now, and that's where we're sitting, 38-1 is a pretty good ticket. I think yours is better than mine here.
Well, I'm flattered. I do think that the Garland thing is gonna it has to be a thing if Cleveland's going to get this far. If Garland is not at a near Finals MVP level and playing as very much the Robin to Mitchell's Batman, Mitchell isn't a Batman enough to drag a team to the finals alone. It's basically gonna have to be 2 super duper stars with Mobley and Allen playing outstanding in the front court. So I think it's a way of cashing out that the gap between Mitchell and Garland in the finals MVP odds right now is notable. I think Mitchell's at plus 600 or something. So it is being treated as if it's a Batman and not even Robin. What's Robin's sidekick? It's like the sidekick to the sidekick. I think that's pretty mispriced, and especially in a potential matchup with the Thunder.
Yeah, I saw Donovan is plus 250 to win the Eastern MVP. He's a clear second. I was like, oh, okay, I can't bet that then. That is awfully short for me. Because again, we're still betting on Cleveland actually doing the thing on top of all the other stuff. Yeah. So I know that we've believed in them. I know you especially have believed in them, but that's a little rich for me. I think I have to play them a different way if it's going to be that short. And the whole point of these is to say outlandish things and then hopefully hit a couple of them along the way. And it's okay, well, if that's not considered outlandish, then what's the fun in that? I don't get the payoff on our hot take or on our bets either way. We have a couple. I know I've got a couple futuristic ones. We got to wrap up here, so kind of rapid fire. Did you have any others for this season before we get to our future ones?
They have one more in the West. The Wolves win their next 8 games in a row. So they have 6 regular season games remaining. Here's what they have. They've got a road trip, but the road trip is Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, who certainly has not looked all that amazing, Memphis, hasn't looked that amazing. Then they get to host Brooklyn and Utah. Pretty feasible to picture them running off 6 straight. What's key about that is that likely moves them up to the 4th seed, where they would get home court advantage in 2 games at the Target Center, potentially against a Lakers team that I'm a little bit skeptical of. So I think there is very much a path for the Wolves to really get hot here and be the team that you are hearing about in a few weeks. Have been on the Wolves in general. We've been betting their futures every week, coming on saying, I'm intrigued by the Wolves. I really want to see how it plays out, but I think this is a good time to buy. The schedule to end the season is much softer than the rest of the West. I think they potentially could move up to that 4 seed. Now, whether they want to get up into the 4 or 5 and have to play the Thunder in the second round is another question. I think the Wolves are a type of team that they're just going to want to get as high as they possibly can, not mess around with stuff, get that home court, which I think, could be pretty big for them. In a matchup, instead of having to go out to LA and the Lakers, where the whistle is going to be even more legendary when it's a home Lakers game instead of a road Lakers game. So just another opportunity to be high on the Wolves, but I think they could really get hot here over the next couple of weeks.
Can I interest you in a money line rollover? Would you play them and just keep rolling it over for 8 games?
I love it. You definitely can.
All right. Real quick, rapid fire. We had a few fun ones just for a past the playoffs. Here's my first one. Victor Wembanyama is a consensus top 3 all-time NBA player. That's the 5 percentile outcome. Top 3. That's Jordan, LeBron, Victor. That's the prediction. I wavered between top 3 or top 5. I don't feel like there is a top 5, so that's not as exciting to be consensus. Like top 3 means exactly what I just said. We know what that has to mean. I think Victor's going to win like at least 8 defensive players of the year. And I think his metrics are going to like the way that Jokic's offense is so good, it breaks the advanced metrics and it like makes us think that he's a defensive player of the year candidate. And like, not really, but like the numbers show up that way because all the Vorps and Schwarps are just so heavily in his favor. I think Victor's defense is going to be so good and his offense got even better already this year than I expected. I think that he wins at least 3 MVPs. I think he wins multiple titles. To be a top 3 all-time consensus probably has to be more than that. However, in today's era, I would argue the individual accomplishment, we're starting to skew that direction more than just the multiple titles. You certainly have to win at least 2, I think, and at least 3 MVPs. If Victor wins, let's say, 3 rings, 3 MVPs, and 8 Defensive Player of the Years. The record is 4, so he doubles the Defensive Player of the Year. He's universally accepted as the greatest defensive player of all time. Is he a top 3 consensus player? Did I get that?
I don't think that gets consensus. I think that gets him into the conversation with like Bird and Magic Johnson. I think he's that tier. If he gets like,
I need another like 2 MVPs or titles in there.
I think yes, exactly. You could sprinkle it 5 and 3 or 4 and 4, but I think there needs to be 2 more of those to get consensus top 3.
Give me your outlandish future.
So I only have one outlandish future, and it's more haterade. It is the Lakers don't win a title with Luka. Now, this is there's a couple of paths here, right? Because the consensus thought is that Luka will now be a Laker for the rest of his life, and that's very fair. Why on earth would a team give up on Luka? Oh wait, we just saw it happen. Listen, it makes no sense, but the NBA moves so fast. To me, it's insane to ever say anything, take anything for granted. So it could be, he wants out. It could be some weird, it could be any number of things, right? And it's a little bit of I think it's really hard to build a title team around Luka. This is, really stubborn haterade coming off a season where he literally made it to the finals. But I don't think that team was ever a true contender to win a title. I mean, obviously, if you get there, you are a true contender. I should be careful with my words there. But I don't think that there are going to be many opportunities for him. I think he's hard to build around. I do think there is something to the like training and the keeping himself in shape. It doesn't seem like he's really made a lot of improvements with the Lakers. He's looking like the little bit pudgier Luka still. So I'll keep my future haterade. You did it. This is so funny. We're doing opposite day. I'm usually the Pollyannish one. You're usually negative. I've got the haterade with Luka. You've got the high ceiling with Wemby. I'll double and triple down on all my Luka hater stock. I think his floor is incredibly high as almost any player that's ever played in the league. But I don't think he is a great player to build a title winning team around.
I honestly think 5% is way too low. I think this is for like 25th percentile outcome. Like, wow. I don't think that it's that outlandish for them. I mean, it's hard to win a title. We don't know how many years he'll have there. We don't know how many more he'll have with LeBron. There's a very real chance this is the best teammate he will ever play with the Lakers. It's the Lakers, so like maybe Wembanyama and Giannis and Jokic will all go play there together. So who knows? But like, there's a real LeBron is really good. There's a real chance this is as good as it gets for him. 5% is low. Like there's not a 95% chance. There's not a 95% chance Luka wins a title. Period. And it's certainly not a 95% chance he wins one with the Lakers. I think you shot way wrong the percentage here. I think you could have hated it way better on this one. Here's my. Go with the Pollyanna theme. Here's my final one. This could not be less Brandon if you tried. 13 months from now, 5% outcome. 13 months from now, the Philadelphia 76ers are playing in the Eastern Conference Finals with Cooper Flag. That's my 5% outcome. The Sixers right now have the 5th best odds to win the lottery, 10.5%. Cooper Flag is a really good fit on that team if Joel Embiid is still alive somewhere out there. And if you had Cooper Flag as the 4th dude to Embiid, and we've seen PG go up and down. Like, I don't think he's shot. I think he can come back. We know Maxey is good. Maxey, PG, Cooper Flag, Joel Embiid is an unbelievably good team. If they're healthy at all, that's a top 3 seed. You win the first round. You might win the second round. You're the Sixers. You got to finally win some of these. Philadelphia with Cooper Flagg is more than 10% likely right now. And I don't think that we've really talked about that enough as like, that could shake the landscape of the league sort of thing. I know it's all out on Philly right now because of how bad everything looks with Embiid and everything. Philly and Cooper Flagg in the Eastern Conference Finals next year, 5% outcome. What do you think?
Standing fucking ovation. That is truly elite stuff. I don't even have words for it. It's too good. It's picking the team that's at the dregs, is getting beaten up, dropping Cooper Flagg, who is literally a perfect fit. Because you said those four guys. Jared McCain is the fifth guy on that. Is arguably like the perfect guy you'd want there. Oh, chef's kiss, Brandon. Really, just a perfect denouement on this series of long shots.
That's it. I love that one. When I thought it, I was like, oh, this is the perfect one for the 5% draft. So there we go. We'll end with that. My thanks to Jim Turvey. Don't forget, as always, to download the Action Network app. Check everything out there. Lots of new updates there, so be sure to take a look. Make sure to join the Discord. Chop it up with the guys. Action Network Discord. There's a link in the description. Subscribe and follow us at Buckets. We will be coming at you with, man, the week leading into the playoffs. Matt Moore and I, as far as I know, are going to be giving you like 3,000 hours of series previews, and we've got the daily best bets, the future Jays. Everything's coming to you. It's on YouTube as well. That's it. It's playoff time coming very soon. Going to hit some of these 5 percentile outcomes. I'm excited about it. Let's get buckets.